Come right back and resume testimony. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, good morning. I'm Eddy Moore, Energy and Climate Program Director for the Coastal Conservation League. And I appreciate you reminding everybody that the mic is on, because when people don't think about that, things go wrong. I'm also a former public utility regulator. For the past 6 years, I've been an attorney advisor to the Arkansas Public Service Commission. I grew up in Spartanburg, worked for Senator Hollings for 10 years, lived in other parts of the country, including Arkansas. So most recently, I spent almost 7 years working on hundreds of different PSC cases, and also spending a lot of time working with regulators from other states throughout the Midwest and the Southeast. So I've had some exposure to the differences. Every state's unique in how it regulates utilities, but there are also common principles. So South Carolina, I'll say I've tried to design these remarks in anticipation of y'all hearing from a lot of people to be under 4 minutes long. I'm happy to take questions. South Carolina obviously needs some structural reform, such as creating an Office of Ratepayer Advocate. But as John alluded to, the consumers are only going to benefit when actual policy changes are implemented. So I think we need to address those as well. And I'm going to try to connect some historical dots here. People have talked about the past experience decades ago with nuclear plants, and people have also talked about some of the potential policy solutions today. What I would say is a lot of the cost control and consumer rights policies that are in place in states around the country came about in part because states reacted to those nuclear cost overruns. So it's not an accident that we're talking about certain types of policy reactions and at the same time about the situation we find ourselves in. In the dozen years after 1972, more than 100 nuclear plants were abandoned, including about 20 that were well into construction. That was a real cost shock. There's some famous examples. There's one out in Washington State where the acronym of the power authority actually spelled whoops. So a little mordant humor sometimes. The states aimed at finding reforms that look at a monopoly system in which profits are based on large and sometimes risky capital investments. So it was getting away from that all the eggs in one basket situation and trying to find incremental alternatives that are less risky. So the reforms, I group them in two categories. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I'm going to hit three. Those categories are conservation and competition. Those things are related. Conservation today refers to something specific, and that's energy efficiency and load management programs that provide energy and capacity to the electric system at less cost than a power plant. So in the context of public utility regulation, when somebody says energy efficiency, they're only including that subset that has a track record of coming in below the cost of power plants. There are a lot of different ways you can invest in energy efficiency at your own will in your own market. Some of those cost more, some cost less. When a public utility regulator says it, they're talking about the least cost solutions. So I'll give you an example. The largest utility today in Arkansas, which is Entergy Arkansas, estimated in 2012 that energy efficiency programs could avoid the need for 700 megawatts of capacity over the following 10 years. So when John was talking about energy efficiency as helping customers with controlling their own bill, that's part of the picture. But the part of the cost impact is, and you can calculate this fairly precisely, the delay and the avoidance of new expensive infrastructure. So last year, this utilities program saved an estimated $192 million at a cost of about 3 cents per kilowatt hour, levelized over the life cycle of the measures implemented. Arkansas currently has the lowest residential electric bills in the Southeast. As the Conservation League testified last year during a VC summer cost increase proceeding, SC&G should have maintained its energy efficiency programs partly as a hedge against the possibility that the project would go awry. Instead, it has backed off of its energy efficiency programs for the past 3 years in a row and plans a further reduction for the fourth year. And that is tied to the nuclear project. Stronger programs at SCNG are necessary to get ratepayers back on track to save money and really to share, as far as a state as a whole, in the benefits that states are getting from these kind of programs, because you're going to become less competitive if you fall behind. In a related issue, for years, the Conservation League has urged the South Carolina PSC to require utilities to follow best practices in planning in order to meet their projected demands. This is a topic called integrated resource planning. It arose primarily in reaction to massive nuclear cost overruns in the mid-'80s, particularly early '90s. The word integrated refers to integrating demand-side resources, such as energy efficiency programs, with supply-side resources and putting that package together in what is calculated to be the least cost solution over the planning horizon. South Carolina utilities do file integrated resource plans, but the review process, I would say, is not meaningful. For instance, in my knowledge, the Public Service Commission has never ordered any change to any South SCNG filed plan in response to the testimony of intervening parties. And we've put a lot of time and effort and money into making good faith comments on that series of plans. I've discussed conservation some. Let me discuss competition. When customers invest in their own generation, such as an industrial customer, maybe a paper mill that has a combined heat and power plant, or a residential customer that has a solar system, they risk their own capital. They bring an element of market competition rather than monopoly to play in the overall energy supply picture. The solar industry is also, and this is very new historically, you wouldn't have said this even 3 or 4 years ago, they've expanded to offer solutions on a large scale to the utility industry on a performance basis. So I'm pointing out that these large solar farms that you're seeing crop up, they're being paid only when that kilowatt hour shows up. There's no upfront payment. That's a power purchase agreement. There's no risk to ratepayers. Ratepayers only pay if they get power. Solar power is becoming the cheapest, least risky generation option in this part of the country. I say in this part of the country because in the Midwest, wind is even cheaper. Battery storage is going to begin very quickly playing a significant role in that. We should build on this current success. We should embrace this evolving technology. All the other states are, and we need to find the smart way to pursue that, so that customers can choose new, rapidly improving technology as a method of cost control. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Eddie, we certainly appreciate your testimony, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today on this important issues. Questions? Mr. James Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to make sure if you had written comments that they would be submitted as part of the record.
I'd be glad to do that.
Okay, that'd be great. And same with Mr. Tynan, if he's left, would love those written comments as well. Thank you.